World leaders have been reacting positively to President Trump's new peace plan for Gaza and have urged Hamas to accept the deal. The group says it is reviewing the proposals in good faith. Israel's Prime Minister is meeting with his cabinet this evening with suggestions there could be some pushback from some of his ministers. Oliver McTernan is a former conflict negotiator, also co-founder and director of the charity Forward Thinking. And good evening, Oliver. So, I mean, there seems to be broad international support for this proposal. Do you think it could lead to something?
I fear not, Mark, because what we witnessed yesterday wasn't the outcome of negotiations. The Palestinians, not just Hamas, but the Palestinian factions were not at all consulted. And so we had what I would call a unilateral ultimatum. You take this or there will be severe, unimaginable consequences. Now, in my experience, that doesn't help resistance movements to reach the conclusion they should. I think that sort of pressure is more likely to stiffen resistance.
Yeah, but I mean, then you've got the Qataris, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan, Jordan. This is all according to Donald Trump, who are going along with this and who are apparently urging Hamas to accept this.
Yes, I read carefully the statement they made, and I think it was a very carefully crafted statement. It almost was just saying we welcome Donald Trump's involvement because it could lead to a solution along these lines. Now, what we witnessed again yesterday was even on the podium with President Trump, Bibi Netanyahu was actually saying, well, my first objective since 2 years ago has been to see the demise of Hamas. And he didn't draw back on that. There wasn't any sign of a new Bibi and a new approach. And then we know afterwards he did his own video in which he made very clear that he wanted to pursue that first objective. Now, so I got an awful feeling that this was a setup as a blame game, and that what we will witness is the continuation of the war in Gaza and eventually the deportation of the people of Gaza. I was in the Knesset 2 weeks ago and engaged with a number of officials there right across the party spectrum. And their estimation was the war would probably take another 6 months and that most people would only feel secure if the population of Gaza was expelled. Now, I think we've got to be realistic and say that is still on the table. So I don't see what happened yesterday and the pressure today and the, sort of other leaders saying, well, go along with this. I don't see that as doing what is essential, and that is to stop this madness in Gaza and the suffering and the nightmare, not just of the 2 million Gazans, but also of the hostages and their families.
Yeah, I mean, you use the term resistance movement. Netanyahu uses the term terrorist group, and he says we will wipe out that terrorist group if they do not accept. And Donald Trump said, and yet you would do so, and we would back you. I mean, so yes. The Hamas do seem to be in a very difficult situation, Oliver.
There's no doubt of that, Mark. And as you say, Trump yesterday gave them the green light. There was no rules at all. What I think they've got to remember is to go back to Iraq. And I think they've learned nothing from the mistakes that were made in Iraq. The proposal yesterday was similar to what happened actually after the invasion of Iraq. The imposition of an outside governing body, the debartification, all of that. And we saw the terrible consequences. The other thing we've got to keep in mind that we're not dealing, Gaza is not Beirut. And I'm going back to 1982 when Arafat and the PLO were expelled from Beirut. They were strangers in another person's country. Hamas are part of Gazan life. Their families are suffering at the moment. It's not easily going to give up and say, okay, after 2 years of such suffering, now we're going to abandon everything. There's no certainty of end of occupation, establishment of an independent Palestinian state. There are no goals achieved in this. It's only losers and winners.
Yeah, look, we've only got a minute left, Oliver, but isn't the important thing, though, that this war stops and the hostages get out? And there is a sense in which this plan does that. I mean, and I'm going to say regardless of what it then goes on to say, but there is a sense that it does that, and then the future can be negotiated, or although it's not, set out at all in detail what that will be, really.
Well, I go back to the hope we had in March earlier this year. We had the 3 months of negotiation, of ceasefire, hostage exchange, and then it all broke down. My fear is that unless Donald Trump plainly says to Bibi Netanyahu, enough, this killing can't go on. Yes, we've got to get the hostages straight out and insist Hamas delivers them. I fear we will see a continuation of the war.
OK, Oliver, thank you very much for coming on once again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.